letting you on the Zoom.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Today is February 12th, 2025, and this is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. We are meeting at the Gloucester High School. The public is welcome to attend our meetings in person or alternatively through the Zoom link provided on the agenda. The meeting notice will reflect if the meeting is via Zoom only. As the recent amendments to the open meeting law allow, the school committee may continue to hold meetings remotely. Please note that in-person meetings will be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the remote connection. I'll call this meeting to order and state that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be accessible and lifelong learners. And I ask that you join me in the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Make sure you're on mute, everyone. Oh, maybe that was you. No?
Mute. It's me.
I think it's Laura as well.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. Okay, I asked that we do introductions so people at home know who's around the table. We can start with Mike.
So I'm Dr. Michael Jarvis, Director of Special Education, Gloucester Public Schools. I'm trying to log on right now, but it's not working yet. So
Okay,
We'll find it. Amy Pasquale, Assistant Superintendent.
Jeremy McKean, School Committee.
Laura Houston, School Committee. Melissa Friend, School Committee.
Kathy Clancy, School Committee.
William Melvin, School Committee.
Keith Minio, School Committee.
Greg Berga, Mayor, School Committee.
Stephanie Delancey, Recording Secretary.
And online we have,
Gary Frisch, CFO.
great. Okay, thank you, everyone. First item of business is oral communications. If there's anyone that would like to address the committee, now is your opportunity to do so. I will read that the public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. So if there's anyone at home, you would raise your hand, and if there's anybody here, you can just. So we have one person so far wants to speak here.
My name is Sean Lilly and I reside at 4 Kitefield Road in Rockport. I'm a teacher in the life skills program here at the high school, and I have the honor of being a member of the Union of Gloucester Educators. My understanding from my brother and sister educators that administration has been asking around at our schools lately as to the current morale of our educators. My answer to questions about our morale is another question. How can you possibly ask a question like that when the answer is obvious? Nearly 3 months after its conclusion, this body and administration continue to go out of their way to include the word illegal when talking about the strike we educators were compelled to undertake in November. It's a reminder of whom this body and administration place 100% of the blame for the work stoppage on and attempts to cast us educators not as principled professionals who voted to strike as a matter of conscience, but as unprincipled scofflaws. How do you suppose that affects the morale of educators? We have repeatedly, in this forum and others, called upon this body to make some kind of acknowledgement of its role in bringing about the strike, that the decision to strike was not an arbitrary whim on the part of educators, but a difficult and understandable choice that we honestly felt was the right thing to do for ourselves and our students in response to school committee policy and behavior. And before anyone even thinks, well, you have to be held accountable for your role in the strike too, we already are, quite literally, to the tune of fines, including a $90,000 bill to a $90,000 bill to a PR firm that we're going to be paying off until roughly the Friday after the second coming. It's expensive fighting an imbalance of power. How do you suppose that affects teacher morale? We have students whose IEPs are still out of compliance because we are still understaffed, including still not having an OT specialist. It is February. How do you expect that? How do you suppose that affects teacher morale? Related to that, and worst of all, we have educators giving their notice in droves since the return to work. Many of them special education teachers and counselors who just don't see their situation getting better and see no urgency from this body or administration to make it better. Seemingly every day, we lose another skilled educator, another veteran educator, another devoted educator, another educator we admire and cherish. with a good friend who couldn't keep coming to work with a knot in their stomach, and we couldn't blame them. How do you suppose that affects teacher morale? It should be obvious to anyone and everyone in this district what the state of teacher morale is, but let me make a clear distinction. While our morale as educators may be low, our morale as members of the UGE is as high as it's ever been. Our unity, our passion, our resolve, our fire for speaking truth to power to hold this body and all Gloucester elected officials accountable for standing up for one another and our students continues to be immeasurable. Not merely in spite of our low morale, but actually because of it. Gloucester educators are down, but its union will see to it that we are not out and never will be. It fought yesterday, it fights today, and it will fight tomorrow. It should not be seen as an excuse to keep doing and not doing what has kept it low, but we are more than tough enough to handle low morale.
I see one person with, oh.
Sorry, hold on a second.
I'll go online first since I, Janelle, do you, Janelle Jackson online, do you want to speak? Yeah.
Janelle, you're.
Can you hear me?
talk now.
Yes, yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Janelle, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Janelle Jackson. I live at 6 Seaview Road in Gloucester. I am here to say that something needs to change. We are drowning. Look at all the open positions that we currently have. It has become an epidemic. You can't ignore it. We keep asking and begging for resources and staffing to solve the glaring issues that are missing, but we're not being listened to. You don't even think that anything is wrong. Educators are leaving not just for monetary benefits, but because their needs are not being met and they're not being listened to. Your way isn't working. We can't be any clearer. Teachers come to you with countless ways and ideas to fix problems that exist in this district, but it's always met with defensiveness or dismissal, or the latest has been that our ideas get stolen, like the city stealing the union's out-of-town beach sticker idea as a means for more city revenue. That was a great idea, wasn't it, Mr. Mayor? You're welcome. Teachers know the needs of this district. They spend all day with students. They know what works and what doesn't. When are teachers going to be listened to? This is why they're leaving. There's no respect. You can't even hold a promise made to longtime employees who retire after 20 years each. They were told before they even left that they would get retro for the time they worked without a contract. And then you went back on your word to them and used them as part of a return to work agreement that they had no business being part of in the first place. They had already been gone and retired for 2 months by that point. They weren't returning to work. You may as well have had said that the 2024 graduating class can't keep their diplomas either. It's the same thing. Both had no part of the strike whatsoever and shouldn't have been used as a pawn in the union's return to work agreement. We signed it, yes, because at the time we never thought that retirees were even being dragged back in. And once we found out and we asked you guys to please let them get their retro pay, you said, oh, we said, no, we can't go back now. It would set a precedent. Yeah, it would. That precedent would be that, yes, we do care about our people. And we want to show them that we care about our longtime employees and respect them. That would have been a great gesture. And gestures like this are why people look for and what they look for in a place to work. They want to feel valued and respected. So when you wonder why so many people are leaving, you can play back my comment as a reminder. So with all due respect, until things in this district really and truly change, and not just words, but by actions, people are going to continue to look elsewhere for employment. And it's a sad reality. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. You may speak. Thank you for your patience.
Hi, I'm Beth Schaffner. I am at 80 Mount Pleasant Ave in Gloucester. I've been coming to these meetings for years, and what I continue to see is two entirely separate conversations, It's like a miss. We're not talking about the same issues. For example, I hear almost every meeting, this committee bringing up concerns about achievement scores, but a failure to mention the cause of these low test scores that the teachers are repeatedly bringing to your attention. You can form committees to talk about data, but pouring over it isn't going to change the facts. We also want better achievement scores. We are in agreement on this. But especially us in the lower elementary levels, we need two things in particular that I'm going to reiterate for you again. The first is behavior support. This committee seems to turn a blind eye to a glaring issue. And I get it, it's a tough solution. We have limited resources and it's not easy. But ignoring this problem will not make it go away. The mental health of our students has been deteriorating for a long time. And we need to start talking together about real and long-term solutions now. I promise that time on learning and achievement scores will all increase if we can effectively meet the needs of students when they're in crisis. The second issue is interventions. At Just West Parish, where I am in second grade, the paras and the Title IX positions that were cut last year have already left us with limited resources and very limited reading interventions and zero math interventions. On top of that, the paras that do teach these small groups are pulled for coverage more often than not. I don't know if this is an issue with substitutes, getting substitutes, staffing, I don't know, but it needs to be fixed. Because we can't continue to claim that we use an RTI model when in reality it's not happening. It should go without saying that when struggling students don't receive targeted small group support, the achievement gap widens. And there's no answer to that besides bringing back the small group support that we were used to having for years. So I ask you now, as we move into planning next year's budget, how are you going to partner with us? What steps will you take to effectively advocate for the needs of our schools? Small actions on your part will go a long way to build trust back between us. For instance, transparency around your decision to not honor those retired paras who worked a full year without a contract. And finally, what are your next steps if the budget is rejected by the city again? We can't continue to point fingers at each other. We need to come together for solutions. But right now, we're not even having a cohesive conversation about what the issues even are. Again, we understand there's no quick fix, but I ask that you start by acknowledging our concerns and you begin to demonstrate a willingness to partner with us so that we can move forward together. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. I see. No. Hmm? Oh, no, it's still, okay. All right, so I see no more hands raised and nobody else is present. So, thank you all for your comments. We will move on to, recognitions. Anybody have any recognitions? Okay.
I went to the 101 Dalmatians a couple days ago and it was spectacular.
And I was there today
Yeah. a lot
in
of
the
talent.
morning, which was an awesome time to see the play
I think, is it one night or is it tonight?
tonight.
Sorry, so if you guys want to leave the meeting, you'll catch the light show.
I think there's one tomorrow night too.
Okay.
Oh, there is one tomorrow night?
Yeah, it's delightful.
Just want to recognize the high school, I think it was the high school band that performed at the GEF fundraiser. They did a great job and kind of set the tone for the whole event and really great to see them.
Next item of business is, we do not have, as far as I was told,
Here, I don't know if that's for the student.
we don't have any students. I heard from Ray and Menery that she did not think anybody was going to be able to come tonight. So I see her on, but I'm just going to check the attendees and I don't.
She's there.
Okay, so, all right, and our student advisors are busy, I'm sure with all sorts of good and productive things. Next item of business is consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they would like to remove?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Deliberations on education issues and the superintendent's report, and the superintendent is not able to be at the meeting this evening, so I think the superintendent, Amy Pastorello, is taking the lead.
So, as superintendent, let me start to everyone, every day in Gloucester Public Schools, every day matters. And everybody belongs. And some updates, I'm gonna do some updates from around the district, and then we're gonna circle back to the GHS competency determination, because there'll be a vote on that later in the meeting. And then Dr. Jarvis will give us a special education update. So first, talking about our youngest students, we're going to be welcoming to Gloucester Public Schools. We have kindergarten registration is now open. There are information nights at all 4 of the elementary schools. Children who are 5 years old on or before August 31st are welcome to register for kindergarten. We are eager to welcome them to our community. The registration packets are available at all elementary schools on our website and of course at our administrative office. At O'Malley, academically, the students are just finished access testing, and that is the testing for our ML students to understand their language acquisition levels. And they've been working really hard on that. They've done a great job. This week, the KPN Museum, our 8th graders, were looking and learning from historical maps from Gloucester with a guest artist, Leslie Davison. And they will make personal representation maps to be part of a large show that will be on display at CAM later this spring. At West Parish, as Mayor talked about, those 101 Dalmatians is happening. Their fifth graders have also did beams and bridges of Indigenous American engineering. They had a special guest, we'll be having a special guest coming. Wit and Wisdom, this is on West Parish's page, but it's across all 4 elementaries. We're having half-day releases for all the grade levels to talk about Wit and Wisdom and continue to develop their pacing and really kind of understanding all of the modules. And also about 101 Dalmatians, we want to make sure that we thank Gloucester Ed Foundation and the West Parish PTO for sponsoring and supporting the wonderful show that it is. This is just the MCAS schedule for parents to know. It's out there, and we'll be starting at the elementary level in April. And it'll go right through till the middle of May. That's for all elementaries. At Beeman, they just completed, well, all schools actually have completed the winter benchmarking, but Beeman is reporting on that. And all teachers will attend data meetings to analyze the results and address interventions that will be coming up. Beeman is getting ready. They began auditions for their 5th grade play, which will be Annie Jr. And it will be premiering on April 10th at Gloucester Stage. Plum Cove had its winter concert on Friday, the 31st by their new music teacher, Penny Singh. Best name for a music teacher ever. Our third graders at Plum Cove are learning a game called Goal Ball in PE class with Mr. Feely. They have a student that is some vision impairment, and so they had a visitor from the Paralympic team talk about that. And this game is to kind of simulate what it feels like to have a vision impairment. So it's really embracing the whole school and on inclusiveness and understanding of people that have different challenges. It's wonderful to see. At East Veterans, on the early release, the ESPs learned more about Elevations, which is a platform that we have to really support our ML learners and our teachers and how to better support them as learners and to understand what they're capable of and how to challenge our ML learners. And that was also for teachers as well. There was collaboration on language objectives, which is another focus for our multilingual learners, but also for all learners, that when we have a learning objective, whether it be in math or science or ELA or whatever it is, there's the objective of what you're learning about. You might be learning about World War II, but there is also a language objective that could be on there. Maybe you're learning how to speak you're studying a speech and how to talk about that. So we're interweaving multiple kinds of objectives into lessons. That's wonderful. And then Taylor Swift, if you notice in this top picture, here she is visiting the kindergartners on her way to the Super Bowl. It was, I think, a life-size little cutout of her, and it was so nice of her to come. She did not stop by the district office. I didn't get to see her, but she did see the kindergartners, so there they are in that nice picture. At GHS, National Honor Society tutoring is available in the library Mondays and Wednesdays after school. And the College Board AP program has awarded Gloucester High with an AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award for expanding the women's access to computer science. GHS is one of only 37 schools to receive this award. A special thanks to Kyle Linehan, along with the computer science teachers, math teachers, school counselors, and students and families for the well-deserved credit, as well as our Gender Equity in STEM Club, led by Eric Lee and Rosine Vidal, help promote gender equity in STEM. Also at the high school, they are currently finishing up mid-year exams, and they will be celebrating World Language Week the week of February 18th through the 21st. So as I was watching the Super Bowl, I was very surprised because I was out of the loop to see, I'm gonna brag, I had Vito in kindergarten at East Gloucester, and I said, why is Vito on the Dunkings commercial? So our very own Vito Ciccolone was a star. His name was Bert in the commercial for our, oh no, he was Bert, it was from his Mary Poppins display last year in 5th grade, excuse me. But then he starred in the Dunkings 2 Super Bowl commercial with Ben Affleck and Casey Affleck and Bill Belichick and a whole host of others. And he did a great job. So proud of Vito. And it must have been a nice walk into O'Malley, I presume, on Monday morning after that. At the high school, the Navy Defense Cadet Corps celebrated on January 25th. And here's some lovely pictures of them doing their drill team and as they competed in Springfield. We've talked before about Care Solace, which is a resource we have available to our students and families and employees and our employees' families that helps connect people that are looking for mental health support. It's not mental health support itself. It will connect them, people to providers. It will take into account their insurance to make sure that we're connecting them to providers that are covered in their whatever insurance they might have. And we want to recognize Becky Mastandria, who got an award from Care Solace as being a high referral guidance counselor. So she is definitely utilizing this support and helping many of our families and students to seek the support and get the support that they need.
This is such a great resource. I mean, so many families can't connect. They sit in emergency rooms and can't connect.
Right.
But yet we have someone here that can.
And it,
Amazing.
their connection time is significantly faster
Right.
than other places. So it's a wonderful resource that
Very
we have.
fascinating.
And we have that largely because of our partnership with the Gloucester Health Department. So,
And how do families, since we're talking about how do families access this?
so there's a link on our website that you can call or send in it. You can go online and sign up. You can reach out to any of our guidance counselors or adjustment counselors at any of these buildings, and they will help you get support. Our principals are aware of it. They can help with that as well. It's also anonymous. So if they go on our website and they seek support, they maintain their privacy. We just received stats of how many referrals might have come through Gloucester Public Schools and basic data that we might have a certain percentage that is anxiety versus depression versus. Yeah. This is apparently in here twice. So GHS mid-year exam schedule. This is a nice little infographic that talks about what they've been doing. Oh, and in addition to for support, the GHS School Counseling has scheduled a wellness week. So as you see on Monday, They had a cram jam study break and a snack with some study tips. On Tuesday, they had cocoa and coloring. And on Wednesday, today, they had a yappy hour, which was come play some games and visit a hydration station and pet our furry friend. So a little social emotional support during that stressful time of midterms. So that's a wonderful thing that the guidance counseling has put together for Gloucester students. That's the update. And I just want to speak to this. You'll come back to it later when you vote on action items. We presented the competency determination in our last meeting. And there was a request, I'm going to skip to the last slide here, to add a specific wording about passing the courses for it to happen. So if you notice here, course requirements, credits are earned by receiving a passing grade in the course. So what you will be voting on is the exact same presentation that you received last time, with the exception of this additional language. Okay? Okay. Any questions on that update?
Seeing that.
Okay. So next we have presentation from Dr. Travis on special education.
Great. So it's been 7.5 months for me. So it's been exciting. It's just been an honor. There's been some tough times, some turbulent times, and there's been some great times. And I think 7.5 months has given me a dipstick. And as I said I would, I'll do the soft audit. Look at what we do, why we do it, how we do it, what we don't do. And that's a lot about what I'm going to talk about here tonight. So this will be our planning as we roll forward into next year, but really it's going to be multi-years forward as part of this. So it's where my mind goes, I like to work backwards. Like, where do we want to be? Right. So where do we want to be? We want to improve outcomes for all students, right? Because it's education. It's not just special education. It's education and value added special education. So it's improving outcomes for all students, finding staff, finding programs, finding paraprofessionals, related services, and leveraging them in high leverage points. And that's largely what we're going to talk about here tonight. So in doing so, it's really important to abide by the law. Now we just do stay with compliance with IDEA 04, but it's important that we take in that law, the legislation. And there are 3 main components to that with a continuum of service. That continuum of service is right out of that, a provision out of IDEA. And it goes threefold. So it talks about inclusion, so that services in the general ed setting can take a variety of forms, including co-teaching, where you have a general education teacher, special education teacher, where the services go to the child rather than the child go to the services. So there's all kinds of inherent benefits with that. We'll talk about, there are students in the general ed setting that also receive services, especially like related services, OT, PT, physical therapy. And sometimes that could be done in the general ed setting, and sometimes that could be done in the separate setting for academics in the general ed setting. And on a tertiary level, we have sub-separate programs, intensive programs, that have a clinical design for them to target a population of kids. So that's our continuum of services and programs. So it's mandated to have that spread for a range of student needs. So as I mentioned, the clinical design is of the utmost importance, is that for each program, we've got to make sure that it's being leveraged in the appropriate way what our population is telling us. So when I say clinical staff and clinical design to a program, it's our clinical staff that helps inform that. So occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and language, reading specialists, special educators that have a nuanced understanding of kids with autism, a nuanced understanding with kids with emotional disability, and a whole host of other ranges of manifestations of categories of disabilities. So our programs really have to have that clinical design to be viable.
Mike, do you want questions
Sure.
now, or do you want them at the end?
Fire away, yeah.
One, inclusion in a general education setting using co-teaching, just unbox that for me for 10,000 foot view. What does that look like in the classroom?
Yeah, so inclusion is the umbrella word
Yep.
for that.
Yep.
So in that, what that means is that a child attends the general education classroom, whether they have a disability, or not have a disability, and the service of inclusion could come through the shape of a consultation. So that's where we have a specialist that will consult with a general education teacher, or it could also, which would be more powerful, is have a co-teacher there. So you'd have a general education teacher and a co-teacher, special education co-teacher, with the idea that the general education teacher has the knowledge of certification, the knowledge of the content. The special education teacher has the knowledge of the skills and strategies to access and make effective progress with evidence-based practices for all kids in that environment.
We have that, right? We have that at veterans.
We have it in pockets,
Pockets, okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Principal Cook in the presentation earlier today actually
Yeah,
talked specifically about how it's working at the high school, which
Right,
seems to be
It's
more
exceptional.
success, yeah.
It's exceptional.
yeah, and that's
It's in
what
a
triggered
good
my
spot.
question is what is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of what
It's
it
well
was.
established. How I know that is I did a professional development, so I got to interact with the cohorts. And so the judging by the feedback that I got, I mean, they're in the know with really what we should be doing for kids. There's less stigma on that. It can be a really robust delivery of special education services. And it's beneficial for all kids. Evidence-based practices. So district programs are an opportunity for students to receive a robust education in their home community. Right, and it gives them an opportunity to stay here and not have an over-reliance on out-of-district placements. We don't have control on what happens in an out-of-district placement. We do have control on what happens here. Right, it's a marked difference on that. And then it builds opportunities for kids who have been in out-of-district placement to also return to the district. Right, and I'll talk more about that and that approach. So some of the determining factors, as I was dipsticking in for these past 7.5 months. So I looked at who we are, what we do well, what we don't do, what are the gaps, and how well do we do it. So across the whole range of our special education services, and again, it's all through that lens of that continuum of services. Where are there gaps with programs? Where are there gaps with services? And how do we address those gaps? So I look closely at the district programs, looked at the profiles of the district programs, the students attending the district programs. I looked at the methodologies that are applied for the district programs. And for that matter, for any of our inclusion programs, I went over that kind of observation as well. So I did an analysis of who's getting services for district programs, who's getting services for services only, related services, like speech and language, occupational therapy, physical therapy. And I did an analysis of the incoming pre-K, because there's been a spike and a growth for eligible students at pre-K. So, and I also looked at the category of specific learning disability. Under that category, it's dyslexia, listening. It's also could negatively impact dyscalculia, so math problem solving, math calculations. So that's the largest category statewide and for the district as well, for kids who are eligible for special education services. So I wanted to look at what's going on there. What is the biggest category of disability statewide and in the district? What are we doing about that? I also dipstick with some parental feedback. So that was a lot of anecdotes. What's to come is it's going to be a survey that goes out with every team meeting. So that will be happening on the parents' experience with their child receiving special ed services at the team meeting and in general on a day-to-day basis. It's an important data point because we need to be responsive to what parents have to say and their experience. We have to be adaptive as an organization. Otherwise, we're not doing our job well. So I will have that survey generated. That will be part of our practice. that I will analyze so that the program leaders will be able to make changes and it'll help inform what are the needs our teams and our buildings need to provide for parents. So staff feedback. So this started way back in July. I met with every building principal. It was really exciting for me to meet them and talk with them and just listen. Really listen to what is going on in their building. What are their needs? That was really my first creation of the depiction of really what I'm seeing here to date is that feedback from building principals. I also got a chance, I saw some teachers that were in working their classroom, doing whatever. I got a chance to talk to a few of those teachers just the same. And so those meetings and the one-off conversations have been really fruitful for me to pulse check in on what's going on here at Gloucester Public Schools. I also have weekly meetings. There's a bit of marathon meetings with my program leaders, special education program leaders. There's so much content and skill acquisition that we need to be as high performing teams in a high performing department. So they are about 2 hour plus meetings. And sometimes it can, yeah, I guess it can go a little bit longer. But it's intense, right? So they give me what's going on a weekly basis of what's happening outside of one-off emails to me or texts for SOS or whatever it is. So those are really important for me to dipstick into what's going on in the buildings. I've also instituted clinical meetings, which have been very fruitful with information of what we do. So the clinical meetings for every district program I've been meeting with. There's still a few I haven't yet met with, but I've been meeting with some of the more intensive needs and the ones that had some, we'll just say some issues with turnover perhaps. So those clinical meetings have given me a good depiction in on what the students' profiles are, what they do, why we do it, what do we do well, what are the gaps. So I hear right from the practitioners in on that. So that's the local speech and language pathologist, the teacher that's part of the district program, assistant building principal if they're involved there at the school and or have one, and or the building principal just the same. And then lastly, the budget meetings. So I've had those budget meetings. That's where we have this blended conversation from the administrators from each building and from central office. And it's really an open dialogue. And I'm talking about a lot of this stuff. So those are the kind of determining factors to where it brought me to these next lenses. I use 3 lenses and I'll have findings with these lenses. So the main 3 lenses we have, I wanted to look through the aforementioned and look through the lens of effective evidence-based practices, right? That's our calling. We need to be doing that. Proven measures for outcomes for students. Second one was, what are our current practices? Second lens, and our third lens is, are there gaps in programming vertically and or horizontally? Vertically by grade, horizontally by school with multiple grades like elementary schools. So on the first lens, effective-based practices. So we need to build and make stronger our clinical design for our inclusion practices and for our district programs across the board. It's not that anybody's doing a bad job. It's not that. I don't think that clinical meetings was a big part of the district in the past. I think they may have had some of that, but this is a measured intent and on really what we do, why we need to do that, matching up student profiles to methodologies that we know work. Right? That's for our inclusion program and our district programs. That's a need, and that work's already underway. It has been, but that's certainly a need as a dipstick for the last 7.5 months. Our practices. What I found is that there's an over-reliance on substantially sub-separate. We're pulling kids out of the general education classroom at an enormous rate. So when we pull kids out of the general education classroom, what we get is that we get an opportunity to get smaller group instruction, but it's at the cost of missing instruction, right? So are we catching kids up? I question that. So So we have an over-reliance, on sub-separate and using that as a go-to service. In some of our district programs, whether it was design, default, I'm not sure, it's the past, we're moving forward. Some of them were duplicative, right? So district programs need to be specialized into what they're doing. Otherwise, we're gonna run out of resources. So that needs to be, especially at the elementary level. We can't have the same kind of program in every building because it'll overstretch our resources. And then we'll have other kids that won't have an opportunity, cohort of kids that won't have an opportunity to have that special programming that would be needed. So it's really important to have specialization with our district programs. Yeah.
Thanks, Mike. Quick question, is the conventional wisdom to service kids in the class versus pulling them out of class? I mean, is there a kind of, well, this seems to be the best way to do it?
So right now, there is some inclusion going on, so through consult model, consult model, but also through some direct instruction, through some co-teaching. It's not robust in the way of the number of teachers that are doing that. More teachers than not, the default is pulling kids out. So it exists. The high school, there's a, like, they're the leaders in the district, I would argue, in the way of co-teaching goes. From what I've seen in classrooms and judging by what the professional development that I provided.
Yeah. And my second question was, I wrote down the word profiles to methodology. Sounds like that's kind of, so you're matching up the services that the kid needs, the student needs with the methodology to deliver that.
That's right.
And that too, I mean, are you saying that maybe that's been an area that we need to focus more on or target a little bit more?
I think we need to strengthen.
Okay,
Yes. So I think it's not no, but it needs to be strengthened.
I see.
Laura, go ahead.
So I've been jotting questions, but I'll just take this
Sure.
moment. So from the last slide, just out of curiosity, you talked about getting parent feedback.
Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, do parents fill out these, I mean, how much feedback do you get from parents?
So the survey hasn't, so I want to do some more edits with staff. So I don't want just come from me. I want to make sure it's responsive to really what our staff and really what as a collective body, what we. So I haven't been using those yet. I will be.
But typically, I mean, I don't know, in your past, I mean, I'm just curious if that's a good way to get information. I don't know.
So in 12 years at Pentucket as director. So yes, it was very fruitful because it can be anonymous or it can be, or they can write their name. It's up to them.
So I think we've had some experience with it being better with online. I mean, I think we've had certain experiences where there are things like sort of structural things that can make it, operative things that can.
Yeah, so I had the best luck with the hard copy.
Okay,
And the reason why the strategy for that to yield the greatest return was to send it out with an IEP. Annual review, 3-year eval, initial. And so it's right there. They know they have to return that. So here's this other form. Okay, I can spend a little time on this and I can go right in with that.
got it.
That was the best strategy I had for that. I've had other folks that I've also scanned those in. And so other folks that mailed it in anonymously without a name on there. So it's really important to hear from the parents.
Right,
I feel
no, of
strongly
course.
about that, yeah. And I'm open to other avenues to,
I was just curious what
Yeah.
kind of, how often people actually fill those out. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
that was a
all.
high yield,
Good.
in my experience.
So I have a couple more. So I also was thinking about the student profiles you talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, our student profiles, and this is, are they consistent over time? I mean, are we building programs for students with the current profile, right? And then that profile changes over time, like the
Yeah.
need changes.
Yeah. So what you've just described, you just blew my slides up. No, no, so it's what I call it's the district renewal process, district program renewal process. Our programs can't remain static. They have to adapt to what our population is telling us. So that the dynamic tension will be like, what's the mission, the values, I'm gonna go through all that, of a program that exists up against what the population is telling us. So we can't stay static in a program and have our population profile say that we need something else here. And I don't understand why, how many kids going out of district, like, that's because our programs need to probably adapt. And so that's really important that we do this annually. It's not static work, it needs to have that dynamic tension in on what we have and what the information is coming in and what we need to change.
Right, because you mentioned there's a spike in pre-K, right?
Yes.
So that's already a bit of, that's a big piece of information coming in for
Yeah.
for preschool or elementary schools,
Yeah.
obviously.
So both depth and breadth, and needs and numbers. Yes.
And then my last question, which may be a little off, as I'm a parent of an elementary and middle school, which so you should know. So I totally hear what you're saying about pulling kids out too much. And I wonder, as a parent, like, when you don't pull kids out, if, depending on what the issue is, and if it's behavioral, in addition, how disruptive that is inside the classroom, the general education classroom. So that's something I've observed.
Yeah.
As a parent.
Yeah.
And so just, I'm wondering about that lens.
Yeah, I think that the key word to that is over-reliance on pulling kids out of the general education classroom. So based off of the intensity of need, that's our continuum of services. So if we're talking about a high level of need, whether it's instruction, whether it is behavior, whether it's whatever lack of skill, so that's what we have to be, really be, use our clinical lenses to make that determination and not over rely on that. Have a continuum of services, so knowing really what would work best for a child. And that's a challenge for our teams, our special education teams, to make that determination. But we have to build that out so that there is an understanding on here are our choices, here's what the data is saying out of the diagnostics that are telling us, and then we make a decision as a team moving forward.
Right, and just to, and I won't stay on this, but that's more than just for the special education team, that's also for the, the general education teacher who's running a classroom, right? And
Yeah.
how disruptive or not,
Right?
this is, so it's like, such a big team effort,
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, so we can't have services in isolation and expect generalization, right? So even when we pull kids out, right, pulling kids out, right? So there needs to be a clinical reason why we're doing that, and there should be a clinical reason why we're putting them back.
Right.
And so that should go through team process, but really before that, it's program design on that continuum of services so that everybody knows what everybody's role is.
I just want to push back a little bit, or not, or
Yeah.
inquire a little bit more of what, that topic. So when you say we're very reliant on taking kids out of the class, how reliant, like, how would you define that a little bit more?
Yeah, so a lot of our schools are relying on having small groups.
Right.
And doing small groups, it's reactionary.
Yeah.
It's pulling kids out after instruction. Now, if it's reading decoding, that makes sense. If it's specialized reading decoding, that's hard to be able to co-deliver in the general education classroom. If it's that's different, because you're talking about sounding out language and letters or sound or blends. So that can be challenging, right? To have that in the general ed. But other things like executive functioning, other things like reading comprehension, language comprehension, listening comprehension, like that can all be provided in the general ed setting, provided that we have the appropriate supports, and that's largely what we talk.
And when the student is removed, you said there's a loss of learning. Elaborate on that. 'Cause that's
Well-
where my concern goes. I understand there could be frustration keeping the student in the class. We are learning now that there's a different path to that,
So
but what is it they're losing? Teach me
Imagine-
more about that.
yeah, imagine a scenario where we're pulling a child out for listening comprehension, language comprehension, or reading comprehension. They're all similar, right? I would argue reading and language comprehension are the same, listening's a little bit different. So if we are relying to pull a child out for sessions and learning how to do that, they're missing science and social studies, or they're missing core instruction out of math, or they're missing other parts of ELA. So
Because the person that's working with them one-on-one isn't doing, they're focusing
Or
on a
small
small
group.
area.
or small group,
Okay.
yes. And not only that, it's reactionary. So how is that person going to definitely attach or use the curriculum real time?
Right.
It's a lot of moving parts in with that. It's nobody's fault,
Right.
just a model.
Well, then when the child returns, they're already behind and frustrated because they lost out on that learning and
Something else.
regardless of what happened with that session, they're already behind going back in, which just caused you to think about.
Good.
I never thought of that. but That's helpful to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm a general ed teacher. I've had co-teachers for years. We have the inclusion model in Lynn. Is there any data on where the kids are going out of district? Are they going to inclusion model schools? Are they going, or like, is that something that parents know about maybe during an IEP meeting or just general education for the parent? And then they say, oh, here's an inclusion model. Your student will be in a general ed class for English, but because of IEP, they'll have a co-teacher. Is there any data on that or?
So as far as data and on reasons why kids are out of district placements, lack of an inclusion model. So generally speaking, it would go from an inclusion model to, or an inclusion opportunity for a child, and then go to a district program. So then if that wasn't robust enough, effective progress, then the child would be placed out of district. So that wouldn't, but if you don't have a strong inclusion model, guess what happens to your district programs? You're overrun, you're overfilled. There's inherent value for each one of those seats because of that. So it's really important to have strong programming across the board. So trickle down, yes, but directly, probably not so much for inclusion.
And how I don't have the data in mind, but around us, how many school districts have the inclusion model just on the North Shore?
Yeah, so I was here in the early 2000s. Oh, God, so long time.
I know.
Yeah, and so there was co-teaching at the high school. So it's been in existence here. It's been known, 90s, it was really in the 90s, it became more known and spread from there. As far as other districts that employ that, I think they do that to some extent because the mandate is to have a continuum of services. So to some degree, and to what degree, I'm not exactly sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So, yeah, sure.
You talked about duplicative services or programs.
Okay.
So in your past experience, how have families reacted to, because that, what I'm hearing is that sometimes not every school will be having, should have the same program if the enrollment is low, right? Like you kind of want to get that skill and do the program really well in one or two places, not multiple,
Right.
right? And how do families, are they open to kind of the benefit of the strength of the program versus the location of the school?
Yeah, that's always a challenge at the elementary level. Like, nobody wants to move a child, right? That's not, like, those should be really, really measured and well-known decisions and proposals. So because that brings in a challenge and in for challenges for families with multiple kids and that, right? So it's but what's most important is that it's for kids. Well, it's really important to have an inclusion program that's really strong. So that is less of a reliance on district programs, but the district program should have a specialization part to them, right? Because it's, if there's a focus for the same program in each building, then we're gonna be building out more and more programs, and we'll be outweighing the general ed program that really should be value added, not replacing. But it's important to have that specialization for sure. Gives an opportunity for kids, be in their home community, hopefully their home neighborhood.
Taking a break in the middle here, I just have a question.
Sure.
It's gonna be a quick answer, but have you noticed or seen in literature, academic journals about any sustained effects of the pandemic on speech pathologies or language learning and anything pop up in our district particularly?
So nothing peer reviewed in on that topic. It's still early going, but I would guess that it's related to that spike. So what I predicted, in my years at Pentucket, during and certainly after the pandemic, I anticipated a bump at pre-K because of lack of exposure, right? So our diagnostics would doesn't counter that lack of exposure. So it comes up as a deficit, whether that's disability or lack of exposure, one or the other, I'm not sure, right? So you find eligibility, and in 3 years' time, you'll have this bubble of eligibility, and then you'll have a bubble of discharge. And so I would anticipate that kind of thing to happen here as well. So that will be interesting to see. So anecdotally or just observation and qualitatively, quantitatively, locally, both districts, that's what I haven't looked at any peer reviewed. That would be interesting.
Yeah, because I remember we saw a spike in a certain, I think it was autism and language specifically, or speech pathologies. This was a while back, years ago. And I was wondering how that has progressed through the years and didn't keep up on it like I expected to, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's definitely a bubble right now. Of high needs at the preschool level, like we're opening new classrooms because of that.
Yeah.
And then finding kids eligible, and they're needing the services, for sure. Yeah.
Is this happening in other districts too, do you think? Like, you keep in touch with any of your,
As far as other districts where that's happening?
yeah, like,
Yeah, so-
are the districts seeing a bubble in preschool right now?
Yeah.
Like, so it's not
I left
specific to
Pentucket,
Gloucester.
and I saw it there.
You saw it there?
Yeah, so it's pandemic related, I think, but also I don't know that it's 100% just pandemic. I
Right.
just think it's definitely.
But it's not just Gloucester,
It's not just Gloucester, no, I'm hearing.
like lack of staff, it's not just Gloucester.
Sorry,
Lack of staff, you know,
Oh,
trying to
yeah,
get the
go- yeah,
specialists that
yeah.
we advertise
Right,
and it's an issue for all.
that's a challenge, there's shortages.
Right.
Yeah, there's shortages, yeah,
Which is unfortunate.
right, it's not good for anybody, but it's the reality of some of those, yeah,
Yeah.
yes. Yep. So that third gap, the third lens is the gaps in programming, so vertically and horizontally. What I found is that we need to expand our social emotional programming. We need to strengthen our programming supporting students with autism. We need to expand our language-based program and expand the sub-separate programming for kids with global needs. Functional impairment at the elementary and middle school level.
Can you say the last one again?
Sub-separate program for students with global needs. So global needs would be intellectual impairment, or borderline.
Global is a word for like generalized?
Yeah, like just, so a number of issues with intellectual impairment, it could impact reading, writing, math. So in a global way, yeah, all areas, yeah. Oh, you did? You are on it. Right. So with all that said, so I'm here to say that I'm recommending a shift. Right? No shocker there, right? After everything I just said, right? So we gotta flip the script here on this. And what I mean by that is that we've got, instead of our district program, so here's an anecdote with this. Some of our district programs have district staff, teachers that are flexing into the general ed setting. Some of our grade level special education teachers are pulling kids up, or a lot of them are. You see how backwards that is? It's backwards. We have to flip that. Exactly right. We have our grade level special education teachers should be in the general education setting, and our our district programs should be in a sub-separate setting. Not to minimize opportunity for kids, just the opposite, to maximize opportunities for kids, because the whole point of district programs is to get intensive services and flex into a place where they have services, and co-teaching does that. So we've got to flip this script. So there's going to be, I'm recommending that kind of shift where the services go to the children and not the child go to the services unless it's intensive needs, right? So that continuum of services comes into play here, right? So it's not all or nothing. It's a blend, it's a meaningful blend. Child has an emotional regulation issue as part of the disability. So it's not just staying inclusion, it could be a blend, right? Let's do that in a meaningful way.
Say with the blend, give me an example of what.
Blend. So it could be another word, hybrid, right? So blend, both sub-separate and inclusion in a meaningful way so that so a child's able to learn generalized skills, because we can't have services in isolation and expect generalization. So there needs to be some support there on the general ed for that, but there also has to be a need of a measured readiness for a child that is developing skills, burgeoning skills, whether it's emotional regulation, whether it's executive functioning, whether it's language acquisition, or whatever the issue is. We need to have a design, a continuum to offer both sub-separate and inclusion.
So to
Yeah.
that point, what is this vision? So you say in co-teaching, right? And I believe we were doing co-teaching when it was veterans school in the 5th grade, if I remember correctly, years back. Which seems to describe exactly what he's talking about. Are you saying hire more teachers to be part of that model,
I didn't
or
get to
use
all.
our current staff in a different way? Like what is
Use
that?
our staff in a different way,
Okay,
and I'm gonna unpack that.
okay, great.
So it'll make sense.
Thank
I'll use the word level funding. It's a funny word that some people
Yeah.
they love to hear. So budget neutral level funding is really, and budget neutral is another way to
Okay.
describe it. So that's part of this.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
No, it's all good. Okay, so flipping the script, so our special education teachers would be more involved with co-teaching. So the design really would be, so at the elementary level, there'd be a focus on, really across the board, not just elementary. There'd be a focus on ELA, and there'd be a focus on math. And the idea, if you focus in on those subject areas, there will also be a paraprofessional that would be opposite, in the opposite classroom that would mirror those services, and then you'd switch. Capacity building, right? There'd be consultation there, and then there'd be capacity building, so you have 2 classrooms per grade level with that model with co-teaching available. So in 1 week, the special education teacher would be in 1 classroom, 3rd grade ELA, and then the other ELA classroom, 3rd grade, for 3 days, the other one would be for 2. And the paraprofessional will help switch. So.
One para,
Yeah, sure.
one para between the 2 classes? Great.
So there'd be, it would be 1 para per grade level,
Per grade.
that model. And there'd be 1 special education teacher per 2 grade levels, doing it this way, for most of our schools.
One special for 2 grade levels, did you say?
Yeah.
So our paraprofessionals, for the most part, are not trained special education teachers,
Right,
right? So how is that happening? I mean, you've got a special education teacher who's trained and certified and all
Yeah.
of that. Our paraprofessionals do amazing work, but they're not trained and certified in that way.
right,
We have some in separate programming,
yeah,
but in general.
Yep.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
So how are they,
through consultation and professional development. And there would be a focus to this, right? There'd be a focus in on this with language comprehension, bringing that to life, right? As it's attached to the curriculum, right? There'd be strategies there, both for the general education teacher and the opposite classroom with the paraprofessional, just the same, right? So, right, there's education too, and with the consultation, that's part of an inclusion. So if a child needs extra help, then the paraprofessional could insert themselves. So with this way, this would be a budget neutral way of doing this to start. So if we went in with full classrooms, full co-teachers all day long, like it'd be a budget, like we'd have to rethink everything we're doing. The way I'm doing it is with measured and focused intent on this, to get the most out of really with the resources we currently have, and improve the outcomes with that model. This is not a model this is a model I'm very experienced with.
This is what they did at Pawtucket.
Pentucket, yes, I instituted this there, yes. So district programs, So what we need to do is offer full sub-separate options, which could be blended, there's that word. What I mean by that is kids that are in a district program can also flex into the general ed. We never take that opportunity away from kids. Just because we would say you're eligible for a district program, that doesn't mean that prohibits you from accessing the general ed. We want to do that in a meaningful way. So it's possible to span between the two. And in fact, I would hope that we're doing that. But they need to have the full capacity of a full sub-separate. So when you have kids that have emotional regulation issues, and so as you mentioned, a classroom that is constantly being disrupted because it's not the readiness level, it's hard to have an inclusion program, even that, to make that work. So I get that, right? So then that's when we look at having a separate program, full capacity sub-separate program to teach those skills of emotional regulation. And when that readiness level, then we start to flex in the general ed setting. So we need to do that with our social emotional program, our language-based program, and our sub-separate program for global.
I'm,
I can ask mine at the end.
Okay.
I have so many questions.
I'm just reacting that you're gonna have to be in a lot of places to kind of monitor and assist, and whether it's through kind of setting it up in the right way, but also
Yeah,
checking in.
there's a lot of moving parts, but it isn't as daunting as you think.
Okay.
It really isn't. So this work has already begun in the way of teaching. Program leaders are not teaching, they had foundational knowledge of this, but really having a focus on the design of this. And so I've begun this work so that we have a fuller understanding of what we're gonna do moving forward to have a continuum of services in a robust inclusion program. And then what will follow up is professional development, so that our staff know what the models are, the high leverage models in making this work, both academically and socially, emotionally, for the whole child, executive functioning, all the same. So, okay, yeah.
Just for the social emotional needs program, is that bringing using counselors and therapists, or
Yeah, great
Yeah.
point. So there will be a clinical design to that. That will be key to be part of that. Key means being part of that. So having them as part of the clinical team, them being adjustment counselors, psychologists, speech pathologists, social pragmatics come out of that can play with social emotional dysregulation. So there will be a range of those providers that will be part of general special education practitioner that will be part of this program, as well as paraprofessionals, just the same. Okay, yeah.
So you can hear that I'm coming from a certain experience. So for
Yeah.
instance, in a school that my family's been part of, there have been a few children who have been so dysregulated that it has disrupted the entire building.
Yeah.
With learning in place.
Yeah.
Multiple times in a school year. My understanding, right, this is an extreme level. My understanding is that one issue was that there was no space to put this child in another program, and also that the parents did not agree to take the child out of the school. So I guess I come to it from that, having observed that myself and how disruptive that can be, both to the rest of the staff and the rest of the students in a building. So what you're saying, and just please correct me if I'm wrong, is like a student in that who's having those behavioral issues obviously would need to be probably in a sub-separate at the very least, depending on what the reason for the issues is, right? And I don't know any of that. But then I guess the question is, you had said that if they're out, they're not getting the same learning if they're in their separate, right?
Well, not exactly. So what I'm saying is that when we're saying a full subset, we're replacing.
Okay, so that would have its own.
So yes, and what we're also saying is that there'd be a set of evaluations that would inform the team to make that kind of decision. What we're saying is that the therapy that's associated with the clinical design of the program would be paramount over the general ed setting at this point.
Right.
The idea is to teach those skills and strategies so that kids can get back to the general ed setting.
Okay, but I don't have to ask more specifics, but yes, it's challenging.
It's challenging, and the other part is sometimes you have to just say that the readiness might not be level, might not be there for the district program, and that's when you would look at an outreach placement.
But parents still have to agree to this,
They
right?
do,
Right.
Parents are the boss,
Right,
that's right,
so,
they're the boss.
Right.
Yep.
Teacher buy-in to all this.
Yeah,
Have you tested that anywhere in the district?
yeah, so that's so important.
It
right?
is. It's
So-
not gonna, that's the success of
And
it.
so what I like to say, yeah, this isn't the Mike Jarvis show, now hear this, like, let's do what I say.
Yeah.
This is all about presenting out the data to the staff, with all my clinical meetings, so it's the to and fro. I hear what their needs are,
Yeah.
and then we look at the student population, what is it telling us? What is that telling us district-wide? So some buildings, they won't know that they won't have access to that other data. So I provide that, what I mean by data, student profiles and what those needs are. So I share that out and so there's greater understanding to that. That it has to be at the forefront of that. And that's where the buy-in is. And if that's like not of interest, then that could be another job that somebody's interested in doing in another part of the district as opposed to a district program. I always want to put people in a position of high leverage where they want to be.
Right,
Yes,
so that's how it
Sure.
works.
right.
And this was successful process when you were before.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
you're bringing
without a
in.
doubt. Yeah, these are unique positions, district programs, these are unique positions, so it's like very innovative. So it takes on that educational entrepreneurial kind of spirit that somebody has, and they make it their own in a lot of ways. So it's a unique person, and they find their niche and they fall in love with it, just been my experience.
And when you say policy changes needed, do you mean policy changes at this level or administrative policies?
Did I say policies?
I thought I heard
Yeah.
in the beginning,
Anything here would be changed.
I thought you said in the beginning there could be some policy changes, or maybe it was just program changes or
Programs,
something, okay.
procedures, yeah, no policies.
So that's done administrative.
Yeah, yeah, procedures and programs, yeah, clinical design and participation.
Okay.
So last need I got out of this, and so I won't spit out data in on this, but so I'll just give you the anecdote. So as with our program, I guess it's a little piece of data, it's a little soft, and that is foundations. That's our decoding program. It's well known. Most districts do it. So even with that program, which is a Wilson-based program, which is a specialized reading program, even with that program, it is expected to have 20% of our population that will require more services after going through that whole program, even with intervention, around 20%. Much like any other districts, not different. So, so now you're talking about eligibility for the areas of specialized methodology. So Wilson Reading, or Gillingham, and Linda Mood Bell, LIPS for short. Like those are the high leverage reading interventions. As we know, science of reading is another one, but that's very, very new. So for the full fidelity of that reading service, it's an hour, 45 minutes to an hour a session. If we use our current infrastructure, what we have for availability for our staff and their availability is that 5 times 30 minutes a session. So we're perpetuating a problem here with kids and learning how to read because we're not implementing the full fidelity of a program. So the solution to that is finding ways, budget neutral as best we can.
This could be a policy.
This one could be.
This one could be a
Could
policy.
be, but I don't know
Be
to the fullest
set
extent.
expectations.
Yes.
Well, we are in kind of a budget development conversation.
Right,
yes.
Because you're presenting
Yeah,
us now.
yeah.
So
This,
it's
this could be a
a
potential.
special education reading specialist. What I mean by that is a special education license certification, so you can get onto the service delivery. Talking about kids who will be eligible for Wilson, OG, or Gillingham, or LIPS, Linda Mood Bell. And they would be the provider per building. Some buildings already have, like Plum Cove, already have a range of people that have the certification. And so it could be a team approach there. I'm impartial to that. What I'm saying is that for other buildings, it's really powerful to have one specialist or 1.5 specialists, like these vets might need a larger school, because of availability, the training if we train a multitude of staff members and they leave, how are you gonna fill that hole? See that problem? So if you have one that you have good feeling that they're here to stay, you invest in that person and they become resident expert for reading and evaluations and for on coding.
And are you saying per building, per elementary school building?
Yeah, it'd be nuanced at Plum Cove because you're right, it's a smaller building, so that would be. So that would be like a reading specialist backslash inclusion teacher or teacher. Or that might be done by committee, by a range of staff members, because they already have that there, and I think that they're well entrenched. And there's not a lot of training that the district has to invest in to get to that.
Right, but Beaman, East Vets and West Parish would all need.
And yeah, some of them
That's where they
have
need to
them,
be
but
lost.
some licensure is in question. So that'll be my recommendation. The reading license, the reading license is a general education reading license, although very valuable. As far as the service delivery, it requires a special education license to get onto that service delivery.
Do these people exist? A
say,
lot of them exist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in the past, I've used a special education grant to train staff up. You know, so that's where that.
We're currently training through a grant from last year, the HQIM grant. I think there's 8 teachers that are being trained in Wilson Level 1. We have about 20 that are being trained in letters, which is not quite what you mentioned, but it is, that talks about the science of reading. So we have a lot of very capable staff members that are eager to be trained. And we support them. You know, since there's been talk of this, I've had a few that reached out saying like, remember me when the training comes out. They're really excited to do that. So yes, they're out there, and yes, some of them are already in our schools eager to.
And express interest.
Yes.
And what's their title? Like, what do we call them? Reading specialists? What do you-
Yeah, special education reading specialists.
So you're saying they're not necessarily new hires, that they exist within the district and there's some interest?
Well, it would be
Some.
some conversion
Okay,
of staff, and so we don't have a clear depiction on how that conversion would look.
Yeah.
So
It might be a version of, there's a new staff member, or there's a current staff member that goes into this space and we have to backfill.
yeah,
It might
Okay.
be a version that we can move a staff member and there's not a need, and that's gonna be school dependent,
Right.
and that's part of the budget process, we're going through that. So we'll have a better understanding when we come with our exact asks, I think in March.
March, yeah.
So, you know, we'll have the understanding how much of an ask it will be, but obviously we're trying to do it as cost neutral as we can.
Yeah.
But also it's clearly a need.
So, just another question. So by implementing this type of, and with this need, is this approach, wouldn't it be equitable to be able to do it fully or not do it at all? Or do you see a way to manage some hiccups that you might not get all the staff you need to implement this type of education right away?
So I think what I'm hearing you ask is, would we start with 1 or 2 schools as
Yeah.
opposed to, so that's
Pretty much, yeah.
possible, right? So I mean, it's possible, it just, what the current demand is, at 20%.
We know every school needs.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, would the approach be all or nothing, or would you go with what you have? Is that, you know, with hiring
Yeah.
I would think doing
difficulties?
nothing's not.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
Remaining static on this issue is, I don't think is an answer. I think we have to be creative with this,
Okay.
given constraints as best we can. So when we're talking about conversion, that means that we'd be converting either a reading specialist or a special education teacher. And so that has to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So right, so we have a need there too. So either way, I have to hire for that.
So that's part of, all the priority presentations that you've had, the BNF has had. What we're doing between now and when we present the budget in March is we are prioritizing among the district of where highest needs are. And we don't have that list yet. We've already started working on it and we have ideas. I don't wanna go ahead and share what we haven't settled yet.
but we'll come to you with what those priorities are and, how we can do it in a measured way to add, or if we're ready to go all in, like, we'll know that.
And no, my only concern is just hiring, right? Hiring
Yeah.
is a problem everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm just, this sounds great, you want
Yeah.
to do it, it can be presented to the budget, we can approve it. But guess what? There's no one applying to fill the positions that this creates or changes.
Right.
So
right.
that's where my concern is, nowhere else.
Yeah.
I get it, yeah.
And let me just jump on that, and my concern is we've taken a lot of time to sort of even out curriculum and sort of
Right.
make equity in our elementary schools a real priority, and it has not always been that way, and I think we're just achieving it, and I'm really committed to keeping what our students are learning at each of our schools as equal.
Which is why I asked that question.
Equitable. We are also committed to that, really a big deal.
Could there be reading specialists that travel from schools until we have a full hire, you know?
The
in
demand is
city?
so great, so right now, so we have reading specialists that are doing this job right now. So that was my example in the way of if they're only available for 30 minutes a day. And
Right.
it's because they have other responsibilities and they can't give the full fidelity of something. So we're not doing right by kids, we should be accelerating learning, not giving them a portion of that, because by the time they get to a mail, they're still working this out, and that's something that we need to be aggressive with. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right, so this is my last.
Mike, do you,
Yeah.
but you did say that there's people within the district right now that could be trained up to kind of.
Yeah, I've got money for it. I've got the special education improvement grant. So that's ready to go for targeting this kind of thing.
Okay, excellent. I wrote down three things. One, I can't even read my own writing. First, it sounds like there's kind of a quantum shift here in the way we kind of deliver special education, or there's a shift in it. You've presented something to us tonight that's maybe certainly different. That kind of says to me, well, I have to trust, and I do trust what you're presenting, like, hey, this is the model that I think would be successful here. And I think that it's an emotionally charged issue, especially for parents, for kids that have, you know, special education needs, and for staff too, I think for people that work with kids that have learning disabilities. So I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is, all sounds good. I like this, you know, I really like the way you've presented it tonight. And at some point I have to say, well, I gotta trust this and see if we can make this work and see if we can make it work across the district. And I think the other thing is, I think it's okay to say, as someone that has had a child that got special services or was a special ed student, it's okay to say, hey, let's set the bar a little bit higher. Let's not just give this kids this that are involved in special ed just enough so we can get them out of Gloucester High School. Let's set the bar high and say, let's go above and beyond. And that usually involves money. So I think as we develop the budget, it really needs to be a priority for us to kind of say, hey, we're gonna make good on this, and we're gonna try to make good on it and do everything we can to kind of facilitate that. So I appreciate the presentation. I certainly trust what you have to say, and I think it's okay for us to say we're gonna do right by the kids that need these services.
Another thing I'll say with that, I don't have this data in front of me right now, but I can tell you that the student growth percentages at Pentucket while I was there led the state.
Yeah.
And it's because of the inclusion program.
It's good to hear.
And, you know, I'll go back to previous special education programs or the presentations we've had. Where, you know, the bottom line takeaway often is the approach to teaching students with needs helps all, having teachers know that helps all students excel at higher levels. So, you know, I love the idea of if a student's needs more support and skills so that they're focused on that before they then get thrown into a situation where they can't be as successful.
Yeah. Right, so district programs, just delve into this one, I'm almost done, so it's, thank you for being patient.
You
So,
can tell we're interested.
yeah, I love it, this is great.
It's very important.
It makes me smile. So, so I want to make sure our district programs go through a rigorous clinical process. You heard me say that word a bunch of times. We know what that means as far as clinical teams, related services with practitioners, all working together to really depict what we're trying to do with our population of kids that would be eligible for a program. So we would outline values of the program. What do we value in the program? Are we trying to get kids into the inclusion setting? Are we trying to build capacity and resiliency skills, if you will? So what are the values of the program? I want our staff to really feel that and take ownership of that. I want to have a program description in general. I want to have a range of methodologies that are outlined there. And I want to have, really most importantly, is entrance and exit criteria, right? It shouldn't be a forever thing that a child's in a program in a hybrid way or a full way. There should be a known understanding of, here are the elements that we're looking for the program for entrance and discharge. And with that, so as we discussed, that the population changes and we need to remain dynamic with this. So this annual process, I call it the district renewal process, will happen annually. We'll do this annually, look at our population at large, and as it impacts our programs, and our programs will need to adapt to really what those data points are telling us. It's how we remain adaptive as a program and responsive to our students and parents. And it's how we create a better opportunities for kids and improve student outcomes. Attention and adaptation. So roll up in on this. So to be clear in on this, about some professional development that's already started, high school, co-teaching it exists, and we're working with our program leaders to make sure that they have a foundational understanding of really what inclusion is and what our district programs will be. The clinical teams at each building will be doing this work and building methodologies and values and program descriptions and seeing where our weaknesses are, where our strengths are, and making sure that we have these robust program descriptions. The focus for co-teaching will be I'm recommending at the earlier grades. So this doesn't have to be all at once, right? Because that means we have to change IEPs that currently exist. As I said, largely, most of them, not all, most of them say small groups separate for skill-based instruction. Kids are pulled out of general ed setting. So that's going to take some time to work with parents and work with them about a new delivery model where the services go to the child attached to the curriculum. There'll be a range of strategies that will be rolling forward with that. And we would start at the younger grades. So K1 and perhaps even flex to 2 in year 1, right? It's really going to depend on what the parents change of delivery from small groups to be eligible with that and then move towards an inclusion model. And it could be a blend of both inclusion and sub-separate. That could very well be. So we will have that option for parents, so it won't just be all or nothing. And the main part is how do we know your child's making progress with any model? Like we can micro progress report on this. We don't have to wait for the report card and the coinciding special ed progress note. We can do that much sooner. I think that's a very important strategy on working with parents with the new delivery model is really micro progress monitoring. So we'd be working with I'd be working with building principals in central office for that matter. We'll be working with building principals to make sure that we have a schedule per building that will waterfall and will enable our staff at K1, perhaps 2, to leverage themselves to do the ELA and the math. So the schedule has to be available to that opportunity for our students. So that will be work that we do moving forward. We'll have professional development that I'll be providing. I wrote my dissertation on co-teaching. I hope you can tell. So it's important. And so I'll be providing that professional development moving forward. And I'll have, so they increase the capacity of our reading specialist for instruction. That's an important part. I'm recommending doing that not real time, for the next fiscal year. We'll try to tease out what the cost and what strategies we can employ to make it as close to budget neutral. There are some strategies that are out there for that. I won't unpack all those now, but there are. And then aim for level funding by conversion of staff and changing roles of staff. So I don't have all those answers in on that, but that's what I've been looking for, right? Always about building capacity. What's our data telling us? How do we leverage staff to change their roles with staff volition, like they want to do it, and put them in a position of success for improved student outcomes for our kids. So that will be part of the work we have moving forward. So we can start with the co-teaching process. That would be that budget neutral, by spelling it out as I did. We would roll that out by each year with a range of strategies. So it wouldn't be by grade level. My hope is that we would have a turnaround within 2 to 3 years. It's fully at the elementary level in particular, fully inclusion as an opportunity for our students.
Is that where you would start the elementary level?
Yes, yeah, but also strategize too at O'Malley, and we're doing high school. So we would, it would be a whole range of strategies, informing parents of what this option is, what does that mean, what does that look like, how do I know my child's making progress there?
We do have some co-teaching at O'Malley.
Yeah.
By staffing, but the professional development and support and the strengthening of that program would be what the work we would do there. So that's not a cost, that's a support from.
We have the staff to start, begin this, and I think moving forward, I think some buildings, many of our elementary buildings, will, even if we had full conversion of the pull-out small groups to inclusion, I think that we would currently be staffed for it.
Did you look at any work, sorry, I'm asking questions about
It's okay.
promotion, about preschool and kindergarten?
One more time.
Do you see any changes for the preschool and kindergarten, especially since we have this bubble coming in?
So that's adaptive on its own. So the beauty, so that the preschool program is an inclusion program by design.
Right, design, yeah.
And so what we do with the population that we have, we make decisions on building cohorts of kids.
Mhm.
Intensive needs for autism, students with autism, and other areas of disability that are significant. So we do that kind of planning. It's already there as far as the percentage, it's 50-50 as far as non-disabled kids and kids with disabilities receiving
Yeah,
special
we hope to get
services.
there. Yeah. And then what about kindergarten?
So that's gonna be in our ongoing question and on where are our resources and how do we use them?
Yeah,
I think, in talking through kids that are in district programs that we have and how to use some resources there at a range of sub-separate and inclusion to help with that bubble of students
Yeah.
as far as numbers and depth of need. So there are a range of strategies in that, and we also have current acquisition of professionals that we will some training.
thank you, very
Yeah.
impressive, and wait for this.
Oh, good.
7.5 months, we've been working very hard.
It's been great. The staff's been great. It's not
Good.
just me working hard. It's like we are working collectively, and it's been a pleasure. It really has been.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Thanks. I've been very quiet over here.
Yes, you
It's
have.
not because of
I look at
disinterest.
you every time
Yeah.
this says cost
I,
neutral.
Everyone had
I was gonna
something.
comment on the cost neutral. No, I didn't have to ask a lot of questions because my colleagues asked a lot of great questions, but this is very interesting, very encouraging. I think that the part that's most encouraging is the renewal process. You know, because it can't just be, well, this is the way we do things. And it can't be a 5-year plan. It's like, it's an every year plan. We have to make sure things are going the way they're supposed to. And then adjust as necessary, because it's a different group of kids coming out every year. So thank you for the work. I'm looking forward to implementing it, and cost neutral is a plus.
Very good. Thank you.
I think he said cost neutral for 1 year.
That's a start.
So,
Year one, maybe.
So what kind of tools do you have that would make your job of reassessing annually the renewal process? What are there tools that you have or need to make that process? I mean, it sounds like a big project every year.
It's dialogue, so the work's never done.
Yeah.
The work is never done. And that's what makes it exciting, really, right? We all have to be in the realm of education, not just special education, adaptive. And so I think it's my approach to build structures of communication with staff, with parents. That's what that survey I mentioned. You know, these data points are so important. And it's really important for us to remain adaptive to what our population's telling us. So I think it's the structures that I have is I use for tools and the communication underneath that or coinciding.
Yeah, so I mean, I was wondering, like you mentioned data, is there like one place where you collect data from different inputs? You know, to say, okay, well, this is you know, here I produced a graph. And here are the changes in this issue over time. You mentioned earlier in the presentation that you were looking for the most need, like by population of students. Have you just, am I asking too many questions at once? But have you discovered what that larger issue is that we need to address as far as like single issue problems that like students have that are most prevalent?
Yeah, so I think the best way I can answer this is, so my experience, I kind of know what to ask.
Yeah.
And so knowing what to ask, I can get pointed to the direction that's going to be fruitful for where I need to find the leverage points. So I think that's, I try to strategize that, right? Because it's just a lot of information, as you just mentioned, it's a lot of data points, and you get lost in. So I think it's knowing questions to ask and then using those structures of communication to have that dialogue that keeps going and make it about the kids. It's okay to have difference in opinion. We make it about kids, it's always gonna end up in a good place.
Yeah, I guess, well, we'll have your
Sure.
attention. So, you know, I guess let me just say, it's like, I appreciate you coming to the district and all that. And the out of the box is what I've been looking for, like, you know, as far as a change and, you know, the status quo of what we've been doing so far. So I appreciate the fresh look and the out of the box thing. But I guess you know, on one hand, I feel like our most high need students are like dear to my heart, honestly. And I do want to pull them up. I want to pull them into the district as much as I can to return them to their, you know, community. Because I feel like they're missing out on a lot being out of district. But, you know, as far as inclusion goes, it feels to me like there needs to be a balancing act here, right? Like you say, like, you know, whether they test in, test out, however you put that. But then there's the other side of the coin where we have the most high achieving and most capable students that I just wonder, you know, will there be disruptions in the classroom for those students?
Yeah, so I think it's students first, right? Students first, so it's all of our students, right? So if a child that is like, say, social emotional dysregulation, it's not fair for that child or other children, right? The child that's experiencing it, right, could be embarrassing themselves in front of other kids, right? So we wouldn't want to be putting kids in a position that's not good for kids. So it's kids first, right? And so that's why we have to do this in measured ways and use tools to help us get to that end, which include evaluations, include observations, and then make our best judgments in on that. And so at the same time, we're not in this to say, oh, you're a program kid and you don't deserve this or that. Well, you might be a child might receive services in a program, but there's that point of readiness that's where they're at. And what we need to do is build skills and strategies so that they can take elements of this. I'll just say really quickly. So one of my favorite stories of my experience, and it's a true one, this happened about, 8 years ago at Pentucket. I was there for 12. And I was at our district meeting and the parents and teacher in Lynn Public Schools and her son spent more time under the desk throwing the desk or throwing a chair or lashing out at other kids, and it wasn't going well. After the meeting, we talked, mom and myself, we spoke and said, we need a change. So the intellect, all the evaluations, child had autism, high intellect, just doesn't have that regulation down yet. So he also wasn't, the design of the program wasn't very good. It wasn't the consortium. Consortium is a great program. It was another collaborative. And so I happened to be building a new program that had a cohort of kids. And I talked to the mom about it. I said, I have this opportunity for your child. And so she said, are you sure, Mike? I said, no. I said, yes, let's take a measured approach to this. He was flipping chairs, like I think he said every swear in the book, and like he wasn't in a happy place. He wasn't being challenged too. I knew that, but he needed to be challenged, and he wasn't in a good environment clinically. Long story short, get into the program. By 2 years discharged from the program, by 3 years discharged from special education services, just got his engineering degree at UMass Lowell. If this child didn't have that opportunity from an out-of-district placement, albeit with that kind of profile and presentation, he would not have been on that trajectory. So that all goes to that child. We just provided the opportunity, that child did the work. And it was spectacular to see. So it's possible. I'm not saying they all end like that. That's my favorite story. It's true. I can't give you a name, but it's a possibility.
Thank you for everything else.
Yes.
Thank you.
Some of the smartest individuals have such like social problems, issues, like I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Like it's not about their capacity to learn, it's about their, the compounding problem.
That's right.
Thank you for answering the question. Yes.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. Thank you for.
It's great, and thank you for your work over the last 7.5 months that came to a new approach going forward.
It's my pleasure, and it's been an honor to do it.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, great. You don't have to stay.
Correct, we can let them go.
Yeah, you can go.
You can go.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Come
you
back
so
and
much.
visit soon.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure.
Okay. Next item of business is subcommittee reports, and we have the building and finance meetings of February 4th, 6th, and 12th, 2025 by Chairperson Melissa Sarah-Prince.
So this is 3 meetings with a lot of information. And I'm gonna highly recommend everybody watch the Zoom meetings because it would be absolutely impossible for me to give a complete report as to everything that was said, discussed, learned, presented. But I can tell you, it was a really great process this year. Tonight is our final one. We had special education tonight to really learn about our strengths in the district and how to get better. So that was the goal of these meetings, is identifying the strengths that we have, then talking about the priorities that are in place, and then how to further strengthen the priorities. That's what every meeting was about with each department. So on February 4th, we started off with transportation with Laurie Francis, who's our transportation director. And I'm just gonna kind of give you highlights of the priorities that are gonna come forward in the budget, as opposed to talking about the whole discussion. So her priorities were to improving staff, getting 2 to 3 more drivers. Also bus monitors and crossing guards. So if we know anybody, have an ability to tell anybody, we are hiring in those positions and desperately need those positions filled. Adding a part-time administrative position. There is a position that was advertised that we've had advertised all of last year. If you remember, it was a full-time position was an assistant director or something similar to that. That position was eliminated. We tried to hire something part-time. That wasn't successful in that hiring. So now they're changing the job description to be a little bit more administrative to help Laurie with things like payroll and record keeping and things like that. So that is expected to be posted soon if it hasn't been posted already. But that is one of her priorities. And student safety was her priority, and what they're looking to do is to add stop arms to our buses, which is a way of adding cameras that will record those cars that do not stop for the bus. That is gonna require some buy-in with the Gloucester Police Department, and I know those conversations are going to be had, they haven't been had yet. Because it's actually the police that will do the ticketing and finding and things like that. But that is one of her requests. She's also seeking grant funding on getting those cameras. So there may be an impact to the budget in some areas, but hopefully there's some grants to do that work too. Then we met with Grant Harris for IT, and first to say I'm not knowledgeable in IT, so a lot of stuff he said to me sound repetitive, but I know it was all important. Cybersecurity and operations was his priority. He wanted new security tools for IT and K-12 landscapes, upgrading and expanding security systems, devices, and applications. Improving processes, workflow, and project management of complex projects, including shifting timelines. HR is an example of how they improved accountability in their systems last year, and they want to enhance that type of work through all departments. Supporting learning, classroom technology with Chromebooks to all students and all staff. That way it's consistent that everyone in the district is working from the same device, and evidently Chromebook has a way of encrypting everything that is done in their work. So that's a benefit to having Chromebooks as opposed to a different device is something that we learned. Supporting standardized testing, having secure and reliable testing platforms, managing student access to technology, technical support. So it was a lot of talk like that. Whatever he wants, he's on a good trajectory, and we just want to keep Grant happy because he's as an exceptional department with minimal staff that is working on many Chromebooks and IT needed projects, and we are very grateful for it. So he's very focused and expert in his knowledge in that department. And so while I might not understand the particulars of what he's requesting, just say yes to his funding is what I would say. Because it helps everybody. Then on February 6th, we had Andrea Perella come before us. She is in charge of our preschool. Lovely lady. She's making a lot of progress at the preschool. She wants to use early intervention data and needs assessment to develop more programs and do better partnering with our preschool partners, which is Pathways, the YMCA, and Kindred Gardens. She wants to hold more monthly meetings and monitor caseloads, increasing the capacity of staff was one of her priorities. That's under program development, and then early childhood transitions, timely transition and placements with further education for families, having goal alignment with the kindergarten and the pre-K, streamlining the process for preschool to kindergarten, and identifying the support that's needed there. And then staff with professional development, there's curriculum development, safety care training, onboarding for the new hires and substitutes that they need, and a lot more. But great presentation with Andrea. Then we moved on to Amy Pastorello's presentation for the elementary schools, which was awesome. Very knowledgeable you are in your departments, very impressive. So you could probably give this report better than I am, but I'm just gonna do it from a high level. So strong tier 1 instruction with targeted tier 2 and 3 interventions, which we really need to put a focus on after the cuts that were that happened last year. Literacy lead is developing, I can't read my own writing, guiding documents for wit and wisdom.
Yeah.
What was that?
They're starting to develop pacing guides.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're getting through all 4 modules. We training just today on that, last 3 days actually. Yes, yesterday, today.
Matthew is strengthening efficient strategies, instruction, including fact fluency, manipulative use of evaluating how we have to move forward over the next 5 years. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so our math leaders and our math coaches are really working on engagement strategies and really getting that fluency throughout all of our elementary classrooms. so that they're ready for the multiplex learning.
There you go. Special education and multilingual learners, increased coordination, implementation, and delivery of special education and multilingual services across each building in the district. New IEP and implementation documents, new curriculum, multilingual curriculum for newcomers into the district. And of course, attendance is a priority, to get to the pre-pandemic, attendance levels. Curriculum instruction and professional development. With curriculum, they want to improve through ongoing review, selection training, implementation, alignment of standards, sequencing, pacing, and continuous evaluation across all subjects and grade levels. New curriculum and investing history?
Investigating history.
Investigating history for grades 5 through 7. And also new curriculum, health and physical education curriculum, and new multilingual curriculum.
Yes, we're working on those.
Working on those. Instruction, continuous analysis and focus on instructional strategies to improve student learning with a focus on student engagement and rigor across the district. Managing instructional decisions based on current data. The child study review was interesting to hear about, and implementing Gloucester Public Schools EL service guidelines. And then professional development, MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, inclusive practices, and then with the model, strengthening instruction practices with a focus on student engagement, and further development of the new teacher academy. Yes, that was a lot. That we did by Zoom. That was a Zoom meeting. And then tonight, we heard from the high school and O'Malley, and their priorities, for the high school. Communication and higher order thinking. They're revising the 10th grade ELA curriculum. They're going to have students reading, all students reading the same book. He talked about having to purchase 200 books.
So they had previously would have a class set of books, or probably 2 or 3 class sets of books, and they would rotate the units through the grade level.
Yeah.
So every student got their
Same book.
unit,
Yeah.
but they would share the book. The benefit they did this year in 9th grade, they want to do in 10th grade next year, of having the teachers go all along at the same pace, is that they have better collaboration among teachers. They can make more interventions in real time. They can look at data sets of how students are doing and make instructional decisions based on the data as they go through, and it elaborates more. It kind of makes sure all teachers are giving the same pace and the same emphasis to the curriculum. And they've had really great success in 9th grade, so they're looking to that in 10th grade. The cost is, there has to be a book for every student because they're not sharing. So it's not a huge cost, but it's a cost, but it's worthwhile because it's giving teachers a better opportunity to collaborate and adjust.
And I had asked about why not do a book online, and the studies just show that it's better to read from a hardcover book, as opposed to being online all the time with the introduction of AI and all that does online. So the books are a better approach. They talked about maximizing staffing, more new civic engagement course and world history course, and talked about a dual enrollment program with Southern New Hampshire University that is new to the district this year. STEM skills, concept and problem solving to continue refining brain-based instruction using STAR 360, math and reading data to inform decision-making. Professional development focused on teaching all students and improving the effectiveness of tier interventions. Again, maximizing staffing, and then preparation and support for post-secondary transition. Continue to support and find diverse offerings. Implement the comprehensive post-secondary transition curriculum to align with SCORE. Continue support for student post-secondary 3-tiered planning, skill building, follow through with the help of community partners. Just making the days better with better education is what it comes down to, in my opinion. A lot of good stuff from the principal of the high school. And then O'Malley, their priority was special education, ensuring appropriate staffing, keep hearing staffing throughout this. So I expect in our budget that we're going to see that request for appropriations. to build a robust special education program, which we heard from tonight. He did mention that Mike Jarvis's report and his would be similar. Develop a vision statement, entrance and exit criteria and philosophy for each of those programs, which is basically streamlining their in-house programming. Student engagement and curriculum, maintain and support curriculum resources, align O'Malley Academy, budget staffing process to compensate for the new CBA and sunsetting of the 21st century funding. We talked a lot about that tonight. The O'Malley Academy is funded by the 21st century grant, which each year, the amount of grant money we get is less and less.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years, right? So we get a certain amount, say it's 1,200 this year, 3 years later. I'm sorry, 12.
Is that about 120?
120,000, and then it goes down 20,000 every 3 years. We do have a third of our students enrolled in that program. It's very robust, it's very educational, it's in high demand. So we're gonna eventually have to talk about ways of supplementing that program through our budget. If we don't get other funding abilities to keep that program going, which is very important to us. So you might hear some conversation about that during budget development as well, when the budget comes out. And then he talked about facilities. As you know, we just did the windows over there. He's very impressed with the impact that those windows had to the building and the art that is on the outside of the building, the fish we've all seen. That was a donation from the Gloucester Red Foundation, I believe, to help get that art developed and the kids involved in doing it. But as far as facilities, a focus on safety and creating a welcome environment, continued partner with the DPW to prioritize facility upgrades. I believe he's looking for some HVAC work to be done this year, specifically in the nurses department at the school. But it appears that Principal Titus and the DPW have a good relationship right now in talking about the needs. And it seems to be making progress, which was good to hear. And then they talked about the need for cameras, internal and externally. There's some spots in the school that may need some extra monitoring. He finds the cameras to be very helpful when there's an incident to go back and see what was reported. So there's some spots that we may see that he requests some cameras. And that is my report. From a very high level, you really need to watch the Zoom meetings to get a full understanding of all the good work and that's being done and what we can do to keep on a good path.
Good job capturing all that.
Yeah, very good.
Impressive.
Very good. Thank you. The next item of business is action. We have some grants to accept. I move that we accept the Gloucester Education Foundation O'Malley Art Installation Phase 2 grant in the amount of $14,893.49.
Second.
Discussion.
Is this more fish or is it, I know they wanted to go around the building, so I don't know if that's what they're talking about.
I don't think they quite know yet.
It's a continuation of the fish, but it might be other sea animals.
It's part of that theme.
Yes,
It's a continuation of that theme. Okay.
Right, but it's, the students will have input like
Okay,
they did last
great,
time.
great.
Whether it's a different school of fish or something else, it'll be complementary.
Nice. Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I move that we accept the Gloucester Education Foundation O'Malley Science Center UMass Marine Station at Hodgkins Cove Partnership Grant in the amount of $6,300.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
So this is a partnership with New England Biolabs, in the Science Center, to kind of, Principal Titus in the budget, meeting, BNF meeting talked about sustaining both O'Malley Academy and the Science Center, and this is one of the ways to, this is not necessarily for staffing, this is for our equipment and things that live inside the lab to help maintain a robust curriculum there, yeah.
Yeah, is that the place that's like along the way to Lanesville?
No, so the O'Malley
UMass
Science Center is inside O'Malley.
Oh, okay.
Um,
No, but you said
The
Hodgkins.
UMass station is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes. So it's a partnership, yeah.
Okay, moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I move that we accept the fiscal year 2025 Mass CEC Climate Critical ARPA ARPA grant. Strand A increase to $275,996, and I so moved.
Second.
Okay. Maybe a little explanation.
Yeah, I was gonna say, tell me about that, if you can.
So this is for, it's work within, I believe it's one of Brenda Waslick's grants, and I don't have all the details of it, but it's to. I'm just reading it, infrastructure grants is supporting, so it's to help with the CBT program, and I believe it is climate control, so it's gonna be working within the shops to improve the climate.
Ventilation or?
I think so, but I don't wanna miss it.
Okay. We have enough information we want to vote?
I think so.
Okay,
I get more information for you back.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the last item of action is a vote for approval of the Gloucester High School competency determination.
So that was that change of one line, stating that, students must have passed each of those courses.
So, everybody comfortable with?
Yeah, I just have lingering questions about, you know, after the vote. What has really changed? So we don't require the students to pass MCAS, but they're still taking MCAS because it's a federal and state requirement. They're not required to pass it, but now we're incorporating what was required from the MCAS to incorporate it in our standards for graduation. Is that essentially what's going on?
So Desi has asked that we come up with a competency determination.
Yes.
That shows that determines whether students have learned the standards that were assessed through MCAS. So, MCAS assessed tenth grade ELA and math.
Yes.
So we need to make sure that we need to somehow assess that students have competency in tenth grade level ELA and math. So that's why we talked about 9th and 10th for ELA. Gloucester goes beyond that and says all 4 years for ELA. For our graduation requirements go a little beyond just 10th grade ELA. For math, it requires that we have determined that they are competent in both geometry and algebra, because that gets you to the 10th grade math level. That's what the MCAS tests. So we are proposing that a passing grade in those courses demonstrates standards, the knowledge of standards, because we are ensuring that our courses cover the standards, and if they're passing those, in theory, they should be passing MCAS, right? So that's the determination. For science, it used to be biology that we would take. It's a little more broad now with this proposal, that they have to have a passing grade in either biology, chemistry, introduction to physics, or engineering.
Yes.
So it's giving a little more choice to which science you're showing that you have competency in, but you still need to do that. And that is in addition to what we already have as our graduation requirements. So they already have to have 4 years of math, they already have to have 15 credits in science. They already have to have all the other things that are part of graduation, but we just have to let the state know, how are we showing that our students have demonstrated competency in the standards that MCAS measures? Because we can no longer use MCAS to demonstrate that anymore.
Just the test,
Right.
not the content.
The content, we are still required to teach,
And they're required to pass.
and they are required to pass. But no longer can we use the MCAS as a measurement for that because of the law that was passed into them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to escape the thought that this is quite silly that we have this change. I know that the people voted on this.
This is a state vote, so.
So it's a state vote.
There's just nothing.
It's a state vote, and every school district has to come up with the way they're reacting to the vote, and it
Right.
is
I
show
mean, look-
competency, and this was the proposal that we put forth.
Yeah,
So basically, instead of one standard, we now have, I don't know how many school
300.
districts, 300.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
right, so,
Right.
but
Right.
it makes sense to me, I mean,
Yeah.
the way, it's basically the same thing, it's just you're not passing it on the MCAS test.
You're passing it in the class.
well, I'm not in doubt that we're capturing what the I have no doubt that we're, this isn't doing the right thing. I'm just, I guess, in my own head trying to figure out, obviously it's caused us more work because of what passed, right? And all of a sudden we gotta come, incorporate, these standards into our regular requirements for graduation.
That's what referendum questions do.
But also at the same time, giving more leeway in the math and science, the sciences, as far as those 4 options you mentioned.
Right.
That's like the
And-
biggest change.
And we're not lowering our standards for graduation. at
I never
all.
said that,
No, I'm just being clear, I'm just being clear on that. And we are just
Added
identifying
some language.
what within our own graduation requirements,
What's Gloucester doing?
what counts for that competency determination.
Yeah.
So we didn't really add anything, the only thing we changed is we identified which classes or which grade levels would count for the competency determination. And the largest change, which actually is a positive, is we have a different variety of science classes that students can take.
Yeah.
Something that we experience all the time is our biology. The biology test is very language heavy, a lot of vocabulary. And for our ML learners, it's labor intensive to get all of that in. And whereas an intro to physics might be more math-based and we might have more success to show that.
Sure.
So, or an engineering is more hands-on applied science, so it's actually giving us a little more variety that we can count for having competency in a science.
Yeah, I take that as a
So
positive.
there's, it's more work, Principal Cook and I and Laura Carlson largely have done the work. And once we document it, it's just the way that we're moving forward.
Yeah, and I guess the last question is, okay, like before we would be able to look at, we're still taking these MCAS tests.
Yes.
So we'll still be able to look at that data to evaluate certain,
So the MCAS data will still be used for accountability
right.
for schools and school districts.
And
So
then there'll
you'll-
be a state report and all that stuff.
There'll
and
still be a
all
state
comparisons.
report.
Yeah.
You'll still hear from me or a new committee about how we're doing on and progressing on
So, yeah,
MCAS.
I think people were obviously like misled to believe that MCAS would go away.
So
and
that's a
shame.
political.
Yeah, I didn't like how the.
We're not,
it was-
Okay, all right,
Can't relitigate.
So, for a motion to.
I would like one.
Okay. Motion regarding competency determination for the Gloucester Public Schools that includes credits are earned by receiving a passing grade for the course.
Second.
Wait, we're just voting that one line?
Well,
No, in
As
building.
presented.
Oh,
So that's the one line that changed from when I
Okay.
present, when we
yeah,
presented.
I wasn't here last week, but, I just, the motion just sounded like the line, but that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
as presented.
Stephanie, was the motion okay?
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye. Can I just ask, so I'm hearing through the news, that I watch news all day long, that the governor is trying to come out with a new test? Is that true?
There's discussion with Desi trying to.
Trying to come out, a new test is gonna come out, so,
I don't expect anything to come out.
right,
So we'll see where Desi comes up.
but these are our,
These are our competency determinations.
until something else comes out.
Yeah, and the timeliness for this was, we need to have this voted on this class of
Graduating
25.
class.
That's why there's a time.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Great
so,
work.
we are going to go into executive session, and we come out to adjourn, and I move that we go into executive session pursuant to executive session purpose 3 of Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the Gloucester, Massachusetts Nurses Association, and AFSCME clerical Unit A and Unit C.
Second.
Okay, moving second. Roll call vote, please, Stephanie.
Yeah. Mr. McKee,
Yes.
Ms. Texera Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Mayor Verga.
Yes.
Ms. Weason.
Yes.
Mr. Minnie.
Yes.
That concludes the public portion of our meeting. Good night, everyone.
And you're